The morning I found the NDA under my coffee cup, I knew they were planning a corporate execution, and I was the main course. It wasn't folded, it wasn't even subtle. Just sitting there like a mafia calling card, right next to the HR-branded stress ball I never asked for and a lukewarm paper cup of communal sludge they called coffee. Hand-delivered at 7:43 a.m. No email, no warning. Just initials in red ink. LM, Lauren Meeks, HR vulture who smiled like a botoxed guillotine. I hadn't even sat down yet when the message popped up on Slack. Hey, quick sync before your review. The smiley face was the bullet. I was already bleeding. See, I wasn't just the top seller at Clarium Tech. I was the reason they hit Q4 targets at all. Closed 3 multi-year contracts, 2 of which had been circling the drain until I fished them out with nothing but grit. A 6-hour call to Singapore and 2 Xanax. I didn't just hit quota, I tripled it. But apparently, that was the problem. Success here had a ceiling, and it was shaped like Jeff's fragile ego. Jeff, my direct manager, once told a junior analyst real leadership is knowing when not to cry. This is the man who thinks empathy is a Slack emoji, and told me to soften my tone after I saved a $1.2 million deal from falling through due to his mistake on the compliance deck. But none of that mattered now, because I saw it. In the NDA. Clause 6.2, Non-Disparagement Clause for Transitional Termination Process. Transitional termination. And just like that, the buzzing in my ears kicked in. That low, pulsing kind of sound you hear when your body knows before your brain does. You're being erased. At 8:05 a.m., I entered the conference room where the walls were beige. The lighting was sad. The betrayal wore expensive glasses and pearls. Lauren sat at the head of the table, her MacBook open to a color-coded spreadsheet labeled Performance Risk Matrix. Jeff was late, of course. He'd waltz in with a Red Bull, half a smile, and a line about getting ahead of the convo. Instead, the door creaked open and he walked in. Not Jeff, Brandon, the new guy. The Ivy League brat they brought in for expansion strategy. I knew he was dangerous when he showed up wearing sneakers that cost more than my car and complimented me on my hustle. That's code. That's always code. I'd seen his calendar once, shared invite with Jeff, titled Q2 Power Shift Plan. Now he was here, pulling up a chair, sitting on my review. Lauren clicked something on her laptop and smiled. Let's talk about your growth trajectory, she said. I looked at Brandon. He didn't flinch, just gave me that polite predator look, like I was a resume he already redlined. Something wasn't just off. It was orchestrated. They were planning a handoff. Of my clients, my contracts, my hard-earned pipeline. And just then, I remembered the strangest thing. 2 weeks ago, Brandon had accidentally replied all to a company-wide thread. His email signature, it listed him as Director of Strategic Accounts. That position didn't exist yet, but it would, because they built it from my role, my book, my blood. And the moment I realized that, I smiled, because I already had a burner laptop under my desk, because I'd already registered a Delaware LLC in my sister's name, because I'd already called the 3 biggest accounts I brought in and asked, if I left Clarium, would you follow? And all 3 said yes. One of them even asked, when? I didn't say it out loud. But in that moment, staring at Lauren, Brandon, the ghost of Jeff's loyalty, I answered silently. Soon, the first domino fell at 2:17 p.m. That's when I got the text from Jenna, my favorite client, the VP of Ops at Renova Logistics. Just got off a weird call with Clarium. Some Brandon guy tried to pitch himself as your strategic partner. Should I be concerned? I stared at the screen, heart pounding like a trapped animal. They didn't even wait. They were already calling my accounts, not even pretending anymore. And Brandon, that smug, soft-handed spreadsheet jockey, he was just the executioner. Jeff was the architect. I texted her back, he's not with me. Give me 48 hours. Then I closed Slack, muted email, and opened the folder labeled Plan B open in case of backstabbing. Inside, a deck, a draft brand manual, and a hit list. I started calling, not emailing, not messaging, calling, one by one. Hey Greg, it's me. Listen, I'm not allowed to talk specifics yet, but hypothetically, if I were launching something boutique, leaner, faster, more tailored, would you be open to a conversation? Greg from the biotech firm, he laughed. I've been hoping you'd do that. Clarium's been bloated for years. Click, that was one. Then Sophia, then Alan, then Elise. By 6:00 p.m., I had 6 soft verbal commitments. Not promises, just the kind of yes that doesn't need paperwork because it's been brewing under the surface, waiting for the dam to break. But the real play, that started the next morning. See, there was one client, biggest on our books, that Clarium had no idea was even on my radar, because I never logged the lead, never added it to Salesforce. I handled it offline, through a back-channel connection from a dinner party I wasn't even invited to. And that client, CEO of a Fortune 500 that rhymes with Synergy Dynamics. He owed me a favor, and now was the time to cash it in. I sent one text, "It's happening, I'm jumping ship. Want the lifeboat?" No reply, not for hours. I went to bed staring at the ceiling, every nerve vibrating like exposed wire. At 3:42 a.m., I woke up to a buzz. One word, yes. By sunrise, I had my first investor. A real one. Just as I sipped my burnt coffee and flipped open my MacBook, the final nail arrived. Jeff's calendar invite. 30-min check-in opportunity for alignment. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. Because while Jeff was busy scheduling alignment, I was scheduling evacuation. While Lauren printed new org charts, I was printing contracts. And while Brandon rehearsed his little transition call for Jenna, who was already on the phone with her procurement director drafting NDAs under my new LLC. But here's where it snapped. At 10:04 a.m., my company laptop locked me out. Remote wipe. Instant. No warning. Files gone. Access revoked. Cute. Except they didn't know one thing: I never trusted that laptop. Everything I needed was already backed up. Because I don't just close deals, I plan exits. And what they really didn't know, what made me sit there grinning like I'd won the lottery, while the screen blinked back at me with a user not found message, was that I'd also recorded the entire review. Audio, video, time-stamped, uploaded to a secure vault, including the part where Lauren said, "We're doing this quietly to avoid triggering compliance flags," including the part where Brandon said, "She'll leave quietly." They always do when you make them feel like it's their fault, including the part where Jeff, spineless Jeff, whispered, "We need her out by June." Brandon's got better chemistry with the exec team. Let that sink in. They wanted me erased by June. It was April. They gave me 60 days. I'd only need 30. You learn a lot about a company by how they try to erase you. By noon that day, my email signature had been scrubbed from outbound messages, my name removed from pitch decks I personally built slide by slide while Jeff played golf and called it strategic visioning. Brandon, sweet, empty Brandon, was now interim liaison on accounts he couldn't spell, let alone manage. But the moment that sealed it, the exact second I knew they were scared, came at 12:43 p.m. My phone buzzed, unknown number, voicemail. Jeff's voice, panicked, brittle. "Hey, just wanted to check in, heard some things. Totally understand if you need space. But let's keep communication open, yeah? We value your presence here. Call me back." Presence. Like I was a ghost. I didn't call back. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Because while they were patching holes in the client dam with corporate jargon, I was already 3 floors down in a WeWork lobby, watching my new logo animate for the first time on a rented MacBook and sipping espresso out of a compostable cup that cost more than Brandon's attention span. The startup name? Invertix. Tagline? Because slow is broken. Our pitch wasn't complicated. Same services, better strategy. No Jeff. By day 5 post-wipeout, I had converted my Google Doc manifesto into a working pitch deck. Day 6, had a ghost designer on Fiverr rebrand the site in 12 hours flat. Day 7, I called in the favor of a decade, my old mentor Carla, who now ran procurement for one of Clarium's feeder partners. Her voice when I told her what happened, "Oh honey, you're building the Ark while they're still debating rain." We had lunch the next day. At a French place Clarium could never expense. She slid a folder across the table like it was a drug deal. Inside, RFP documentation, partnership language, and a little yellow sticky that said, "This is the first domino, push gently." I walked out with 3 warm leads and a handshake. Then came the whisper. A screenshot sent from a friend in compliance, anonymous, bless her soul, showing a Slack thread between Lauren and Jeff. Lauren, if she talks, we're exposed. Jeff, Brandon says she's bluffing. No real platform, just ego. Lauren, still, monitor her LinkedIn. Jeff already did, she hasn't posted. No, Jeff, I hadn't, because I was waiting. See, you don't drop a bomb during the storm. You drop it in the calm, and that calm was the upcoming Client Innovation Summit, Clarium's crown jewel event, every major contract in attendance. Media, shareholders, and me, technically still an employee, still on payroll, still listed on the damn event brochure as Director of Enterprise Strategy. They hadn't updated the print run, and I had an idea. Not just revenge, reintroduction. If I played it right, if I timed it to the second, I wouldn't just burn Clarium to the ground. I'd walk out of their own ballroom with their top clients, their future pipeline, and a brand new company they didn't even know existed yet, all smiling, all clapping, all signing. And that's when I started writing the speech. The ballroom smelled like ambition and over-budget hors d'oeuvres. Clarium's Client Innovation Summit was a $400,000 PR stunt dressed in florals and fake humility. Everything was gold embossed, even the name tags. And there it was, mine, gleaming under a soft chandelier, Elaine Stratton, Director of Enterprise Strategy. Still hanging off a lanyard they paid for. Still tethered to a woman they assumed was already fading into linked in oblivion. I showed up in a black suit sharper than my exit plan and heels that made sure I was heard before I was seen. Brandon caught sight of me near the coffee station and nearly dropped his glass of oat milk like I was a hallucination summoned by guilt. He muttered something that sounded like wasn't sure you'd make it, but I just smiled and said, wouldn't miss the funeral. His laugh was half a cough, half a fear response. See, they didn't revoke my access badge. Too much chaos with the event. Too many moving parts. And Lauren, she was so busy schmoozing with 2 clients I'd personally onboarded, she didn't even clock that the woman walking past her with murder in her mascara was the same one she tried to erase with a non-disparagement clause and a cold coffee NDA. By the time I took my seat near the front row, right between Jenna from Renova and Greg from Parallax Biotech, I had exactly 7 minutes to execute the plan. The keynote speaker was Jeff, of course. He strutted on stage like a suburban Elon Musk, flipping through slides he didn't understand, talking about adaptive scaling and strategic pivots like the buzzwords were birthrights. I watched his throat twitch every time he said the word partnership. But the crowd, restless, checking phones, whispering. Because right before he took the mic, my assistant, yes, I'd hired one, scheduled a mass email. It hit inboxes at 10:27 a.m. Subject line, introducing Invertex, fast, focused, fearless. Inside, the new brand, the founding team, the partnerships already underway, and a little note signed by yours truly. I built my reputation by solving problems Clarium wouldn't touch. Now I solve them faster. Call me. Let's make it uncomfortable for the slow. And here's where it got delicious. The footer of that email, it contained a link, not just to my new site, but to a private live demo room hosted 2 floors up. In a WeWork suite I rented specifically for that day. 10-minute walk, free espresso, signed NDAs at the door. By 10:41 a.m., Jenna had excused herself to take a call. At 10:44, Greg said he needed a quiet space to review documents. By 11 o'clock a.m., 4 clients were gone from the ballroom. And Jeff, still tap dancing for applause that wasn't coming. I leaned over to the one Clarium client still beside me, Lisa, a skeptical holdout from the insurance group, and said, stick around if you want a t-shirt, or come with me if you want to grow. She didn't respond, but when I stood, she stood too. As we walked toward the exit, Brandon caught up, grabbed my arm lightly. You're breaching contract, he hissed, his breath sweet with desperation. I leaned close and said, low and slow, no, sweetheart. I'm capitalizing on incompetence. Then I left, down the escalator, through the atrium, into a world Clarium never built because they were too busy protecting Jeff's throne and playing musical chairs with people's careers. Upstairs, the real meeting had already started, and someone was handing out pens. The pens were gold, not plated gold, real enough that one of the clients joked, is this a bribe? And I said no. Bribes come later. These are just souvenirs for watching a company bleed out in real time. There were 7 of them now, seated in the WeWork suite under a fake fern, and a vision board that still had launch Q3 scrawled on it from the last tenant. I hadn't taken it down. Felt poetic. Across the room, my assistant Jade, former Clarium intern, poached the moment they denied her a raise, and told her to be patient. Handed out folders thicker than Brandon's resume, each one tailored, each one precise. Jenna from Renova flipped open hers first and whistled. This onboarding map is tighter than Clarium's entire ops department. Greg, never one for subtlety, looked at me and said, are we doing this now or next week? That's when I pulled out the piece de resistance. A tiny, elegant remote. One click, and the flat screen on the far wall blinked alive. Invertix. Slide 1. Because slow is broken. Slide 2. Projected migration timeline. May 1st. Fully transitioned. No data loss. Slide 3. Legal opinion on non-compete circumvention. Drafted, vetted, notarized. Not that I'd needed it, but it was good to watch their eyes widen. Slide 4. A single phrase, built by betrayal, powered by speed. I watched their posture shift. That subtle lean forward. That moment when possibility outweighs loyalty. By the time we hit slide 8, showing our exclusive pricing model and Clarium's padded consultant fees side by side, Jenna laughed so hard she nearly choked on a pistachio. Greg just muttered, "This is surgical." And that's exactly what it was. While Clarium fumbled with PR fluff and outdated CRMs, I'd built a weapon. Lean, fast, legal. Everything they said I couldn't do, too aggressive, too rogue, too independent, I turned into a platform. A business. A damn invitation. The real twist wasn't what they saw on the slides. It was what they didn't know. Because sitting silently in the back of the room, behind mirrored sunglasses and a $4,000 handbag, was Carla, my mentor, my mole, and now my investor. They didn't know she'd already bought 30% of Invertix through a shell corp registered in Maine. Didn't know she'd also been whispering in the ears of Clarium's second-tier clients for weeks. Didn't know she had 3 senior-level resignations timed like dominoes to drop the day after the summit. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her presence was the thunder before the flash. And then came the knock. 3 raps on the frosted glass door. Jade opened it. Jeff, looking like a man who'd just read his own eulogy on a lunch napkin. He stood in the doorway, blinking. I stood too. "Wrong floor, Jeff," I said. "The keynote's back that way." His voice cracked. "Just a little, we need to talk." Now everyone was watching. Jenna, Greg, Lisa. Even Carla tilted her sunglasses down just enough to make him squirm. I walked toward him, heels clicking like gunshots. "No, Jeff, you need to talk. I just need to choose when I press send on this statement." I tapped my phone screen. His eyes dropped. He saw the document preview, formal resignation from Clarium Tech, Elaine Stratton. Dated yesterday. Filed this morning. Sent nowhere? "Yet, you're really doing this?" he asked, half whisper, half frantic. I leaned in, close enough for him to smell my lipstick and regret. "You put me on probation, Jeff. You gave my clients to a child in designer sneakers. You erased my name from decks I bled into. You wanted me gone? Congratulations." He swallowed. I stepped back, voice rising, not yelling, cutting, "But you made one mistake. You didn't bury me deep enough." Then I turned around. The whole room applauded. By the time Jeff stumbled back into his sad little conference room with his tail between his khakis, I'd already triggered phase 3. The resignations. One by one, they dropped. First was Nisha, head of mid-market accounts, wrote me a midnight text 3 days earlier. "You go, I go." She hit send on her resignation from inside the Clarium event. Didn't even finish her lunch. Then Marcus from Data Ops and Bella from Enterprise Procurement. All of them gone by 3:00 p.m. Clarium's Slack went silent. Their clients went louder. At 3:12, Jenna texted me a screenshot of Brandon's frantic group chat labeled Client Retention SWAT. The messages were pure chaos. Where did Lisa go? Why is Greg's calendar blocked with Elaine? Who the hell is Invertix? I wish I could have framed that last one and hung it above my desk. The truth is, Clarium never knew how fragile they were. They thought culture was Pizza Fridays and HR newsletters about employee wellness. They never realized that the real glue, the actual scaffolding, was the people they underpaid, overlooked, and shoved into development plans like a pat on the head before cutting them loose. So I gave those people a plan. I offered equity, real shares, day 1 buy-in. No fake incentive tiers, no gatekeeping. Jade became chief of ops within 48 hours. Nisha, head of growth. Marcus, CTO. Clarium treated us like parts. I turned us into partners. And just as the ink dried on the final onboarding packet that afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. It was Lauren. "Elaine, listen. We understand things got off track. Jeff's been placed on a performance plan. We're making structural changes. Really like to open a conversation about how we can make things right. Make things right." That's what they say when they realize you took the foundation with you and left them a husk full of office chairs and false promises. That voicemail, I sent it to Carla. She laughed. You broke them before the SEC ever could, but Clarium wasn't done flailing. At 6:42 p.m., my inbox pinged. Subject: urgent cease and desist. They accused me of client poaching. IP theft. Brand confusion. Cute. Too bad all client records I used were collected outside the Clarium environment. All conversations documented. All transition terms reviewed by legal. And best of all, I wasn't the one talking. Jade was. Invertix wasn't owned by Elaine Stratton on paper. It was owned by Ellery & Co. Holdings, a shell I'd formed last year when Jeff first forgot to credit me in a QBR. Carla helped me build it. And now, Clarium wasn't just chasing ghosts. They were trying to sue a shadow they couldn't touch. So I did what any rational woman in my position would do. I wrote them back. Short, sweet, legal. I no longer represent your interests. Kindly direct all further communication to my legal team, or better yet, keep watching the news. And then I attached the press release. Invertix raises $5.2 million in seed funding to disrupt legacy B2B infrastructure. Names of every major investor. Quotes from 3 ex-Clarium clients. Photo of me on the balcony of our new office with the tagline, "Sometimes the only way to rebuild is to burn first." Scheduled to go live at 9:00 a.m. sharp. The next morning. On TechCrunch, Bloomberg, and yes, LinkedIn. I didn't just launch a company. I built the spectacle of their demise. And soon, the whole damn industry would be watching them crumble in public. We scaled in real time, quietly, efficiently, without apology. But first, I had one more move to make, and it wasn't business, it was personal. The personal part started with an old Gmail draft titled, "If I ever have to burn it all down." It was a folder, buried in a folder, hidden behind a fake label that looked like budget receipts. Inside were screenshots, voicemails, recordings, a treasure map of every microaggression, every undermining comment, every backroom betrayal Jeff and Lauren ever thought they'd whispered into the void. Like the time Jeff emailed Brandon and CC'd Lauren, "We need someone who plays ball." Elaine's 2 alpha doesn't inspire team confidence. Or the Slack message from Lauren during a salary discussion, "Let's hold the raise." She doesn't seem desperate to leave yet. Or my favorite, Brandon's drunk voice memo accidentally sent to the group thread after last year's holiday party. "We'll just wait for her to implode." Women like that always do. I hadn't imploded, I detonated on purpose. At 7:00 p.m., I started forwarding the evidence. One piece at a time, not to HR, not to legal, but to Clarium's board of directors. Each email titled, as requested, "Evidence of Executive Misconduct." Happy to provide full affidavit. I didn't add commentary, didn't gloat. Just cold, surgical timestamps and source files. By 8:30, Carla texted. They just called an emergency board session. At 9:00 p.m., Jenna forwarded me a company-wide Clarium email marked urgent. Jeff had stepped down. Lauren was on leave pending investigation. Brandon, still floundering in meetings, trying to explain why every major client had ghosted him like a bad Tinder date. Just when I thought I could close the laptop and pour a drink, I saw it. A Reddit thread. r/Tech Circle post titled, "What the hell is Invertix and why is Clarium hemorrhaging clients?" Hundreds of comments. People speculating, gossiping, calling it the cleanest coup in startup history. One anonymous poster claiming to be a former Clarium VP wrote, "Elaine Stratton wasn't difficult. She was dangerous." And they were stupid. Got upvoted 4,000 times in an hour. By midnight, I had 23 new partnership inquiries in my inbox, 7 acquisition feelers, 3 journalists asking for interviews, but none of that matched the high of what came next. Jade walked into the office holding a letter, hand-delivered, no postage, on embossed Clarium stationery. Inside, a single sentence in Jeff's handwriting, "You win, please stop." No apology, no admission, just defeat wrapped in stationery. I took it, folded it once, and slid it into a file labeled trophies. Then I turned back to Jade and said, "Print that email we drafted." She grinned, because the final move was the announcement, the one that would salt the earth behind me, a hiring call. Invertix is recruiting, Clarium alumni encouraged to apply. With one line at the bottom in bold, "We don't do probations, we build empires." Scheduled to go live at sunrise, not for revenge, not for clout, but for every person who ever sat in a review room across from someone like Jeff, with numbers that should have earned them a crown, but got handed a leash instead. Sunrise hit the office windows like applause. By 6:03 a.m., the hiring post was already viral. By 6:11, Invertix was trending on Twitter. By 6:17, someone from Clarium's recruiting department accidentally applied. I didn't even have time to sip my coffee before the press calls started. Jade was juggling media requests like a pro, New York Times, Business Insider, some obnoxious tech bro podcast begging for the exclusive teardown. But I wasn't interested in narratives shaped by people who'd never been told to smile more while outperforming everyone in the room. So I gave my own version. One tweet. Plain white background. Black text. Photo of me and the Invertix team under the glow of our newly printed logo, champagne in hand. They put me on probation. I built a company. Then I took theirs. Below that, a hashtag. Hash built by fire, the internet did the rest. Meanwhile, Clarium's shareholders were in full meltdown. An internal memo leaked to TechCrunch detailed the revenue drop. Nearly 40% of their Q3 forecast had already evaporated. Clients didn't just leave, evacuated. Procurement offices now flagged Clarium contracts as under review. Partners paused. Vendors demanded new terms. The brand, once smug and self-satisfied, was radioactive. But the crown jewel, the cherry-slathered, gold-plated final twist, Carla bought controlling interest in Clarium through a holding company, quietly, legally, brilliantly. 3 weeks after Jeff's resignation, she walked into their boardroom wearing all white, smiled at the remaining execs and said, "Let's restructure." Her first act, dissolve the enterprise strategy division. Her second, license Invertix's platform at full market rate. She called me after the vote, didn't say a word, just played a voice memo. "Jeff, she'll never make it on her own. Women like that burn out." Then she laughed, and I laughed, and I opened the bottle of champagne I'd been saving since the day I registered the LLC. Now Clarium is a cautionary tale passed around corporate happy hours like urban legend. Jeff consults for mid-tier tech firms no one's heard of. Lauren's coaching female empowerment workshops on Zoom. Brandon went silent, deleted LinkedIn. Rumor has it he's working on a DTC dog treat startup. And me? I take meetings I want. I work with people who get it. I lead a company forged from ash and arrogance. We don't do toxic. We don't do titles. We definitely don't do probation. I built an empire from their paperwork. And every time someone asks me how it started, I smile and say, they handed me a pink slip, so I turned it into a blueprint.